What is up, Playbook? Who has learned one thing so far today? 10 things. 1,000 things. Probably not, right? But a lot. These conversations have been incredible. Thank you for the energy that you're bringing to this event. I look out here and just smile from ear to ear. I'm so happy that you're here. Can't wait for this session. I know that all morning we've been kind of pulling the curtain back on how we do things here at Trainual. Well, for those who don't know me, I'm co-founder and CMO here at Trainual, Jonathan Ronzio, and I have the fortune of facilitating this session with 3 of our amazing executive leaders that you're about to meet. One of them you already know. We'll get there. But this is going to be how we do it here. We're going to have some fun with this one. All right, you ready? Okay. Contestant number 1 shares my affinity for emo music, but he draws the lines at musicals. So you won't catch him at Broadway. He happens to lead the largest team here at Trainual brilliantly as our CTO. That's Arash. What's up, man? Welcome to the stage, sir. Okay, contestant number 2. Fresh off of launching her baby registry app, Mama and Dada. When she's not conquering motherhood, she is conquering Trainual's marketing campaigns. It's our VP of Marketing. Jamie, come on up here. Welcome, Jamie.
Solid start.
All right, and you know the next person. He's our host with the most. He's got the most miles under his belt at Trainual, having just completed a 300-mile cycling race. I don't know if that's more impressive, though, than the fact that he would throw himself, his body, in front of a falling wall for his team. Come on up, Adam. Get up here. Welcome. All right, you 3. May the odds be ever in your favor.
Oh, God.
Good start.
Okay, Arash, would you prefer to be known, we're gonna kind of ease into this, right? Would you prefer to be known for being 10 minutes early or for leaving 10 minutes late to every meeting?
I'm going to go 10 minutes early, and it is the show up ready core value. I'm a firm believer in showing up ready. For me, the first 10 minutes the first 10 minutes leading up to a meeting, if I can do a little bit of prep work before I get there, meetings are often a lot more productive. So I would much prefer the 10 minutes early.
Okay, that's the right answer. 200 points for Arash. Actually, growing up, our parents used to say, late is for losers. And so I agree. Jamie, what is your go-to karaoke song?
So I think it's Don't Stop Believin'. That's I have core memories from college, just being in a bar, just screaming that at the top of my lungs with everybody else. And so I think I'd go to that one.
Will you give us a bar?
No.
Don't stop.
Believe it.
Yes.
Nailed it.
All right, Adam.
Jonathan.
Can you tell us your go-to coffee order and rank your top 3 milks?
Top 3 milks? It's usually just like a cortado would be my go-to, which means less milk. I'm not a milk person.
What is a cortado?
It's like half a latte, like a latte's little brother or sister. Yeah. Yeah, and I always get it with oat milk.
Okay.
Goat milk,
just
goat milk.
oat.
Oh,
Just, triple oat, my ranking.
Oat extra creamy.
Yeah, oat.
No oats.
No oats, yeah.
Okay. All right, amazing.
Thank you.
So we're going to have some fun. We're going to get to know these leaders as people, but also go a little bit more behind the scenes of how we operate as a leadership team, how we build our culture, how we think about our departments and how they work together. But I would love to have all three of you answer the next question. What is the most outrageous thing that you have all done for team building inside of your departments?
I'll take one. It's not outrageous, but a unique thing that we did. We have a weekly team meeting every Wednesday where we align on kind of all things CX, and the whole team shows up. And I realized after a while of running the meeting, like, there's always this obligatory send at the end of the meeting where you're like, all right, folks, that's the end of today's meeting. Go out there, be well, do good things, make your parents proud. And I did that like a dozen times. I was just doing the same thing. So we switched it up, and now everyone in the team meeting has to come ready. And I call someone at random to send, we call it the full send, to send us out of that meeting. And it's been really cool that, basically you have to have this mindset that you'll always be called upon, and therefore you always have to have a story or some kind of like moral driven story that you would want to send off to the team. So we get a lot about, how to prosper through change management, or, how to have mental fortitude in difficult situations, or a book that someone just read, or a TV show that someone read. And it's been this real kind of galvanizing activity where we rally behind each other. And it's not necessarily one person, cementing this like goodwill or this this advice onto the team. As a team, we sharpen each other, and that's been really, really fun for the CX team.
On the marketing side, we do these things called the cards, and it is like infamous on our team. And Jonathan, you actually started it, and he joined a meeting recently. He's not in all of our meetings anymore, and he's like, oh my God, you guys are still doing the cards? It's sort of like hazing, but it's very nice. So when a new teammate joins, we're usually on Zoom because we have a hybrid team, and they can choose different categories. And so they're like physical cards that half our team has at this point. And some of the questions, like you could get a really, really hard question, and it's like your first day on the job, and your question is like, do you believe in life after death? Or like just some question, and it like stops you in your tracks, but it's forced these like really real conversations with each other. And it's created trust, and we have like so many memories and inside jokes from the cards. And so I think that's something that we'll always continue to do.
These are called deep talk cards for anybody who wants to look this up. But yeah, they're fun. And when we, a couple years ago, when we had a in-person kind of end-of-year gathering, we brought the cards. And I also brought sour candies that were color coordinated with every topic from the card. And so everybody had to pick a card and a sour candy and try to answer while like really puckering up.
I mean, this is like legit life with Jonathan Ronzio, as you see it. Like, this is what happens.
I feel like you guys are much more outrageous than we are on the engineering side. So I think if I put that kind of social pressure on the engineers, they would crack. But on the engineering side, one thing that we really love doing, Haifa called it out, is a game called Rosebud Thorn. So we'll constantly go around whenever we're introducing new team members to the department. We'll go around and everyone will share something that's happening in their life that they're really excited about right now, something that's coming up soon that they're looking forward to, and then something that's bothering them. And that's led to some really fun updates and conversations, and we get to know each other and get a little glimpse into what's happening into people's lives outside of work.
So I think the theme here across all three of you is that these activities are meant to expose the real people inside of the teams, right? Get to know the authentic people, not just their job title and their responsibilities, but like their full self at work, right? So how do you think about bridging the gap across departments? Like how do you think about how CX influences and collaborates with engineering, and how marketing influences and collaborates with CX, customer experience, from a standpoint of crossing those chasms when together maybe those teams haven't built that same emotional trust because they've done those with their team members, but maybe not the entire Trainual team. So how do you think about bringing that to the table as leaders?
I think like staying aligned as an executive team is the most important thing. And so I think if Adam and I have any sort of rift, that will trickle down to the entire team. And how my team talks about people on his team is really important to me. And how I react to, say, if they said something bad about someone on his team, like how I react is even more important. And so I think that the alignment from our team and like our ability to push back at an exec level and like solve issues has been the most important thing, and how that like cascades to the rest of the company.
Yeah, huge plus one to that too. I think that level of kind of camaraderie between us, to your point, calling out like how you react when someone says something about another thing, I think that's something we don't often think about, but those are kind of the notes that the team takes away, and that translates into communication. I also think that one of the things that we do at our company retreats is we make sure that you're constantly sitting with and interacting with people that you don't typically interact with. So although within kind of the teams and the day-to-day work, there's plenty of opportunity for kind of more of the water cooler conversation and the activities that we put together, at our company-wide events, we make an active effort to cross-pollinate kind of teams and get to sit down and have conversations with people that maybe you interact with once a quarter or once a year. And I've seen a lot of benefit come from that as well.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a ton to add. The only final thing I'd say is just a constant encouragement for people to make that step. I think there's this fear. I don't know if fear is the right word, but like people. A lot of employees tend to have this kind of respect for a hierarchy, or a respect for, crossing over that threshold. And I think there's this challenge in a scaling business where the more that becomes a part of your DNA, the more decay that starts within the business. And so I think it's this goal of, trying to make it feel like a 10-person company where you're 10 people at a cube and you can just tap on shoulders when you scale to 100 people or 200 people. And I think one of the things we can do is just continue to encourage people to make that step. Like, hey, I have a question about something marketing. Have you reached out to Hannah yet? Right? Like, go ahead. You have permission to take that first step. And I think the more that people feel that permission, then the more they'll just do it on their own. And things like, the retreat and other things, there's this compounding effect about how collaboration can happen when folks are empowered and they know and are, friends with these other people.
So you talked about trying to make it feel like a 10-person company, even when you're not, right? When today we have 140 almost, right? And so, Jamie, I would love for you to take this. You joined the company when we had less than 20, pre-pandemic, and to go through the growth journey from then to now, how have, describe the experience of Trainual's growth and how it's retained the startup vibe of its culture from 10 to now?
Yeah, I think there's a few factors here. One is I'm a big believer that culture starts from the very top. And so I've worked for some amazing cultures. I've worked for some extremely toxic cultures. And the difference is the CEOs. And so huge kudos to Chris and Jonathan for you just set the tone. When you join a meeting, it's like there's music playing and that's expected. That's fun. That's how you run a Trainual meeting. You don't just start it. And so I think that's one really important factor. I think all of the intentionality that Sasha did and what she talked through this morning, that doesn't happen by chance. That is carefully crafted. We've made some fails, but it's constantly trying to perfect it and make a really great place to work. And then the third thing that I would say is one of my favorite values when I first started at Trainual was make ideas happen. It was so fun. Just go and do it. If you fail, it's fine. And as we've grown, my favorite value has been no red tape. And I think that people will check each other and say hey, this feels like red tape. And it kind of snaps you out of it when you're building all these processes for scalability. And so that has been my favorite value as we have grown. And I think it's really contributed to the fact that we haven't become this frustrating corporate place that nobody wants to work.
Arash, can you call out an example of when you have noticed red tape form, or maybe you didn't notice form, but you found it, you ran into it, and you had to rip it out? in alignment with the core value inside of engineering?
Yeah, this is something our director of engineering is actually very famous for this. We call it the coding cowboy. But occasionally, we'll have process get in the way of something that we need to do. And when we identify that, we promote, hey, go around the process if you need to. Let's document why you had to go around the process and revisit whether or not we need to change the process. But the process should not be there to inhibit the work that you need to do. So it's something where occasionally we'll say, okay, hey, our release process, as an example, is a very long process where your code has to go through several reviews. It goes through a lot of oversight. It goes through automated testing, manual testing, and then ultimately hits production. Sometimes we look at something, we're like, hey, this is a small change that needs to go out now. Let's ship it. And we will curtail that entire process to get that code to production.
And Adam, if you were an emoji, what would you be?
If I was an emoji?
Yeah.
Compare and contrast multiple emojis, please.
I mean, I like 98% of the emojis I use are the green check mark and the thumbs up.
AKA K thanks.
Yeah, K thanks. Bradford. I would probably be in light of that, the like palm to the face. The palm to the face one would probably be a pretty good one for me.
I love that. All right, I want to stay with Adam. A lot of
I don't.
A lot of what's come up has been, well, it starts at the top. It starts with the example that the leadership level sets. Obviously, we're having a lot of fun up here. We have very tight relationships. We're more than just coworkers, right? Adam, as somebody who most recently joined the leadership team, now a couple years, right? But like, talk about that experience of integrating with a leadership team. Like, how was that when you were coming on board, and what was unique about the way that the executive team functions here that allowed you to get up to speed and plug in?
Yeah, there were so many things. I remember I joined, and then the very next week we were up in Flagstaff at Chris's house doing our planning. And there are so many things, but one thing that really sticks in my mind: we ended planning, we were all getting ready to go home, and we went outside, and everyone hugged everyone. That was how we closed the meeting, and it's how we close every single like major retreat or every single planning session we have. We just go around the horn and we give each other a hug. And I'd known these people like 2 days. We did like 2 intensive days of planning. There's like a decent amount of like barking and like debating, and then everyone just hugged it out, me included. And I also remember being in that meeting, not knowing anything about the business, but having some experience under my belt and some things that I thought I could contribute, and the openness to any idea being a good idea was really set in those first meetings, and it gave me a lot of courage to speak up, and and it also gave me a lot of courage to show vulnerability on misses, and I think that was that behavioral modeling happened by the existing core leadership team, and it became very easy to fall in line there.
And Jamie, did you like Adam when he joined the team?
Straight up.
I'm just
well,
kidding. Don't
this is a
answer.
good opportunity.
The cortado really threw you off?
Yeah. No, let's talk about vulnerability, right? How we open ourselves up to be vulnerable as leaders. We do a lot inside of the Trainual culture with collecting feedback, allowing feedback to come not only from peer level or top down, but from bottoms up. Arash, I would love for you to start with how, whatever cadence Trainual collects feedback, acts on feedback, how you think about that in terms of what the audience can learn from it.
Yeah, this is something I credit our people ops team and Sasha for, but we have probably more mechanisms to give feedback than any organization I've ever operated in. One, we have feedback as kind of a line item in all of our one-on-ones. So we've got a kind of a rough template on one-on-one agendas. And as part of that, it's, hey, what feedback do you have for me? What can I do better to enable you to do your job? Beyond that, at the department level, it's something that Chris actually started up for our company as a whole, but he created an anonymous forum, which is Ask Chris Anything, where any employee can jump in and throw a question in. We've replicated that for our department, which is Ask Arash Anything. So anyone on my team can jump in and throw a question that is completely anonymous and kind of ping me for hey, this is something that I'm struggling with. I don't think that we should be doing things this way. Can you talk through why we're doing this thing? Beyond that, we have our review process, where within our review process, we do surveys. We do surveys to partners, for partners of our employees to give us feedback. So we're getting feedback from so many different directions. Frankly, I think sometimes it's almost too much feedback, because it's like, how can I react to all of this? But the big thing is create as many open mechanisms of feedback, and different team members will pick and choose different kind of pieces that work well for them. But it ultimately suits everyone's kind of desired medium.
Did you get the anything.com?
Son of a.
Okay.
I'm going to fire up that domain purchase right now.
Jamie, obviously we collect all that feedback to be better leaders, to operate a better company, to build better teams. How do you think about the balance between what an employee wants versus what the business needs, and in how we orchestrate a strategy, how we reorg the team, how we build certain people up or let some people go, that all of that goes into how you act on feedback?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like one of my main jobs as a manager, is to align those two things, right? Like what is the employee really good at, and what do they love, and does that match with what the business needs at the time? And one of the best lessons Jonathan's instilled in me over the last 5 years is putting people in seats where they want to be, right? Like forcing someone into a role where, even sometimes they say they want to be there and it's very clear that they don't. And when you put people in the right seats, like they are so much more productive, they are more happy, and they're ultimately driving more value for the business. And so I would say it's a dance. It's a delicate balance. You're managing people and their lives and their livelihood and their families. And so it's not something that's like flippant or kind of like rash decisions. It's very like discussed at length, and ultimately it's like just trying to find the balance of the two.
And Adam, cherry or grape slushies?
It's you keep giving it to me because my actual business questions are garbage. Adam, what emoji do you want? Hey, Arash, why don't you talk to me about the technical challenges?
I have to mess with our host a little bit.
I'd probably do a combo of both. I'd probably do a mix.
That was the one wrong answer. You could have gone.
Adam, you messed this up.
No, that's the right answer, because that is a purple slushie.
That is a purple slushie.
There you go.
No, I'd love for you to comment on how you think about reorgs as well. I think both the marketing and the CX teams have gone through a lot of reorgs. It's building up around top performers. How do you think about structuring that and taking action towards that sooner than later to ensure that people are motivated?
Yeah, I think Jamie said some excellent things there. Chris had a comment not long ago in one of our meetings about your creative energy, and he's like, you kind of have this circle of creative energy, and it's kind of the same size for most people, but you have this choice on what you do with it. And you can either spend all of your time harnessing that creative energy to try to keep things the way they were yesterday or keep things the way they were in the past, or you can deploy it completely to the change that is inevitable in the future. And so much of the grappling that happens in businesses, or when those two things start to come at odds, or people have different perspectives on them, right? That the thing that was working in the past, why would we dare change that? And so I'm going to choose to take all or a portion of my creative energy to fight to keep that thing the way that it was. And so I think a lot of, there's there's kind of like the fertilization of the team, or like, tending and caring for the team, which is the constant talking about the importance of change and the benefits of change. And that way, when those things come, we've had new roles. When I joined, the team was like 9 people, and we're 25 with brand new departments. And we've had, Chris Rail was up here. He's been in 4 different roles in the past 3 years. And it's like, when the people who lean into that and look opportunistically about these changes, I built a whole career on that. Someone would quit a job, and then I'd ask, like, hey, is there something I can do for that person who just left? And now I did my job and a little bit of theirs. And it's like, there are opportunities for people who will seek them out. And so much of it is trying to embrace and encourage that culture of change, so we do harness and use that energy towards a more productive future state than just fighting to keep things the way they are today.
Well, with change comes empowerment, right? Ownership and autonomy to actually make decisions, to drive change, to adapt to change, to set new processes around what needed to be changed. So I'd love for the three of you to weigh in on like the levels of ownership and autonomy at Trainual in terms of what you feel like you can do before a slap on the wrist versus what your teams feel like they can do. Because in order to move fast, you have to have no red tape, but in order to build a stable, scalable business, you have to have decision-making guidelines in place, right? Arash, you can start.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I struggle to enforce the autonomy that my team actually has. I think a lot of times they come with the baggage of the previous roles that they've been in and constantly feel like they have to vet and verify everything with me. And the mechanism that I've taken to respond to that is I will only answer questions with questions, which is incredibly frustrating when you first start working with me. But after a while, the team starts understanding, okay, these are the 3 questions that Arash asks before we come up with kind of a solution. And they'll start asking those questions, and they'll start doing those things, and then come back to me if something breaks. And if something breaks, then we look at the problem and we say, okay, let's sit down and figure out kind of what went wrong and how do we adjust and how do we not do this next time. But it's I think for me, yeah, the biggest challenge has been just getting the team to understand, hey, you have the autonomy to do these things. You can go and try new things and experiment and iterate and test. That is in our DNA. And as we've gotten larger and larger, that's something that I want to make sure stays.
Yeah, I think on the marketing side, there's certain things of like, our acquisition funnel. If that breaks for an extended period of time, that is really, really bad. But at how fast we move on our team, there are so many mistakes that are made, and that is part of the culture. And I can't think of one mistake that's been so detrimental. It's really, and anytime there's anything that happens that the team brings to me, I really don't care, like the situation around what happened or whose fault it was. I'm just like, fix it for next time. Like, what can you put in place to ensure this doesn't happen next time? And so the team knows to like when we retro and something goes wrong, because honestly, it happens all the time. It's really just looking forward, and that's all I really care about.
Yeah, just kind of bucketing what they said, I think of scope, risk, and skill in those situations. So what is the scope of the problem? What is the risk if this thing goes wrong? And what is the skill of the person who is taking it on? And so, 85% of the things that cross my plate are a risk level that I would accept like anyone in my department to take on, right? And 15% of them are ones that I should either be doing because I have the skill or the awareness or the purview. That's one of the things our role that we're able to see across departments a little bit easier. Or I could delegate, but I have an underskilled person, and those tend to be like a mentorship, maybe where I bring someone along. So usually when I'm thinking about that, it's autonomy first, but evaluating that scope, risk, and skill.
Jamie, specifically for our relationship, right? Like me having in the early days literally done everything in marketing, and then you came in 2019.
Yeah,
right?
First part of 2020.
February, 2020, right? And through the years, basically like there's so much that you don't run up the ladder and have to talk to me about. Like, how do you feel like for the folks in the room that have somebody that they report to and they're trying to build more autonomy and more trust and want to have that growth in their career, like what do you recommend they do to allow their leaders to let go?
Yeah, this is a tough one because I'm a bit of a perfectionist. So I like things to be well thought through. I like them to be clear. Like I go for clear over clever. And as the team has scaled, and as I think honestly a lot of it has been you just stepping back and like you are focused on so many other things. And so it's like, okay, I'm gonna make this call here, and if I fall and I Slack Jonathan or I text him and I'm like, hey, I need a second opinion, or I've been looking at this headline copy for an hour and I just need some help, and he is there in a second, and it like brings energy back, and so I think it's part of it is just stepping back as a leader, and I think that's really the hardest thing. That it's not necessarily like you can tell someone that they have the autonomy, but until you really step back and you're not there, you don't really force that function.
Yeah, one other thing, this hit me hard pretty early in my tenure. I had never had it. Chris moved us to one-on-ones monthly. I'd always done a weekly one-on-one, and that was like my checkpoint. And now it's like we do a check-in. He's like, all right, see you next month. And basically, I have a month of autonomy to go build the CX department the way that I need to. And there's checks and balances or things like that. But I think he does that with almost all of his directs, which is let's set the course, let's get alignment on that stuff. Go do your thing, and if there's a miss, we'll accept it and press on. I think that a lot of that autonomy was established from that and just kind of carries through to the rest of the team.
And I think a lot of if you're aligned on the metrics that you're watching, that's also a good indicator. Like if a metric is off, then that's when you can regroup.
I would add one of the things that anybody should think about, if they're not already doing it, is allow your direct reports to run their one-on-ones. That should be expected from them. That is something Jamie did so well early on that transformed how I thought about scaling our go-to-market teams. And it's the expectation of everybody now. If you are running your own one-to-ones, you're taking control over your career, right? And so for the leaders in the room, expect that, communicate that they should come to you with the agenda. They should give you the problems, the blockers, the solutions, the proposals, the status updates, et cetera, rather than you coming with the agenda. I think that helps a lot. All right, I know we're right about at time, so I would love for the three of you just to give, well, maybe the two of you give your final thoughts for the audience, and Adam, let us know
favorite cereal,
if it's GIF or GIF.
Okay. I don't need a minute. You guys go first.
I would just say I get a lot of feedback that people want to hear how we do things and all of that. And just like social media is kind of a highlight reel, we've made a ton of mistakes as an executive team, as a company, but I'm a big believer in whoever learns fastest wins. And I think that's our superpower, is that we just keep trying new things and we keep going. And so just don't forget that.
I really want to double down or triple down on something that you said, which was kind of the executive leadership team culture and the relationship that I have with everyone up here and everyone in the broader executive team. I know that I have a team that if I make a mistake, if there's a challenge that I'm facing, I have teammates that I can lean on, that we can look at that problem together and tackle the problem versus playing the blame game. I think the culture that we've built, the trust that we've built over my last 4 years here, trickles down to the entire team. So as much as we say invest in culture of your company, invest in the culture of your leadership team as well. That is so incredibly important and pays off in dividends.
Yeah, it's GIF. I think Jiffy that's actually like a measurement of time, right? Like I'll be there in a Jiffy.
Peanut butter.
It's
Peanut butter too. Yeah. Yeah, GIF. Or do you want my answer?
Please, yes.
Okay. It was like 5 years ago when I had this mind shift of this, every day is just a choice. And so much of my career I had spent just falling in line with the culture that was there or the team that I inherited or the way things were going. And that worked well. I'd worked for some great companies. But I started to realize that, you have to make these conscious choices on what you want your team to be, or else you wake up a few years later and the team has turned into something different. That may not be bad, but you're putting risk in place there. And so part of what I've thought about on this front is just how do I make it really clear on what is inbounds and out of bounds to my team? Once it's inbounds, I give a lot of latitude. I don't want people just to do things the way that I wanted to, but it's this constant choice to make investments in what is the team that you want to build and what does that look like? Every new hire that comes in, how do you sit down and talk to them about what that means, what it means to be a part of this team and how we treat each other, right? Those are the small choices that cascade into a much larger impact, especially in a team that scales or any company that is hiring or bringing new people on. And it shouldn't just be a byproduct of luck of who you bring on, right? You play an active part in that as a leader. And that's been very helpful for me.
Amazing. Well, let's give a round of applause for our panel here. Thank you so much to our CTO, Arash Tadian, our VP of Marketing, Jamie Hartman, our VP of Customer Experience, Adam Lovell. Thank you all.